How's it going, everyone, and welcome again to the Trade with Logik podcast. I'm here today with Shahan from Logikfx, the CTO, and today we're going to discuss what to look out for in the Forex market, because there's a lot of scammers out there and there's a lot of conflict of interests out there, so you really need to be aware of the issues that arise, and especially if you're new to trading. So,
Yep. Hello, Matty.
yeah, how's it going? Do you want to discuss the review stuff? Because there's a lot of bad stuff in there.
Yeah, I've been noticing. Well, let's just start by saying that there's been a big trend of these Forex influencers appearing all over social media and trying to market to people to get into Forex, whether it be through some type of signal service or some guaranteed incomes. Like they would show screenshots of themselves earning loads of money and try to hook people into getting it into the industry. And a lot of them do this in very shady ways. So one way we're going to talk about is when looking at a introducing company that's either they're out there to sell you education or signals or whatever, how they can manipulate public perception about themselves.
It's that whole thing of, with the rise of like social media, YouTube and Instagram mainly, a lot of these Instagram influencers are using Forex as a medium to sell their own products, right? And they're using these black hat, which are basically just unethical methods of making you think that they're legit, when in fact they're actually just straight scams or just straight trash products, but they're seen as great just because of their social media influence.
Yeah, so one example of them manipulating public perception is through a method of review censorship. So let's take a well-known website, Trustpilot. A company can be listed on Trustpilot and they could get a bunch of reviews. Now there's a specific company, I'm not going to mention which one, that I'll talk about in particular. It has 80% 5-star reviews and like 15% 1-star reviews. Last time I checked, something like that. And that seems very reputable, right,
Yep.
Matty? I mean, 80% 5-star reviews is great. So I looked further into it and I noticed I was logging it for the past week and I noticed that out of all the reviews that appear, 80% of them are not 5-star reviews, but actually the opposite. They're the 1-star reviews that are the 80% when I was tracking it for that week. So I was like, wait, how could there be such a big discrepancy between 5-star and 1-star when it should have been the opposite? So I looked further into it and I noticed there was a lot of reported 1-star reviews. Like if someone posts a 1-star review on the company, even if they had legitimate points, they'd be flagged as defamatory or flagged under whatever the company could do to get that review off. They will try every method they can
That's
think
really
of.
interesting. So they're basically using leverage on the platform to report legitimate comments that are 1-stars, right?
Yes, they would report the legitimate 1-stars and keep the 5-stars.
Yeah.
Which resulted in the company being heavily more towards the 5-stars when really it should have been more towards the 1-stars.
So in the end, this company, let's say, has 3 out of 5 stars right now. But
yes,
in reality, that's because they've been reporting all of these 1-star reviews, which should actually push the star rating down to like 1 or 2, right?
Yeah, it should have pushed them down to 1-star, 2-star. And they're only reporting the 1-star ones that are taken as a bad review. Now, they can't get rid of all of them, but they got rid of a major chunk of them, whichever ones they could. And because of that, when someone searches up that business, they would see, oh look, this is a good company. On the surface, that's what it would seem like to a regular person going about their
Yeah,
research.
and that's quite dangerous, right?
And yeah, it's very dangerous because now they legitimize themselves with these reviews that are all very heavily manipulated. So then I looked at the other end. Instead of looking at the 1 stars, I started to look at the 5-star reviews. I read some of them. Some of them were legitimate, but a lot of them had this PR vibe to them. Like, do you know what I mean by
So
the
it's
PR
kind of
vibe?
like a scripted review which is sent around.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like,
this company is great. Oh my god, stuff like that, right?
hmm it would be perfect grammar or well structured, as if it was someone being paid to write it, not as if someone's out there just to make the review. Like, you know, when you go to like a cinema or a restaurant and you write a review, you just write, "Oh, the food was great. I liked this, and this dish. I'll maybe come back for another
That's
time.
true.
Might be my new regular place." Whereas a PR one would go into like this weird detail that isn't
And
genuine.
that's like a growing issue, right?
Now, yeah, these a lot of these companies are leveraging all this internet research methods and trying to manipulate it to come out in a more favorable light, as it can uh, cause more people to buy the service or
Because
education.
it's not like a verified service review center. Like on Amazon has the same issue where they'll have product ratings and then they'll have reviews, but then they'll also have verified purchase reviews. And it's actually come under
Yes.
fire recently because there's these companies out there that are literally genuinely built just to give you bad reviews or good reviews. And that's what these companies are
Yeah.
doing in the Forex industry, right? They're
Amazon's a good example
mm,
because there was a recently, well, not recently, but a year or two ago when all this drop shipping was getting heavily
oh yeah.
marketed, there was reviews like Amazon product would get sold more when it has a lot of good reviews, which makes sense. But then that incentivized all of these sellers to get more and more good reviews, and it resulted in a lot of fake reviews being pushed to Amazon. So Amazon had to come up with a solution to this.
Yeah.
Amazon's solution was the verified purchases, where you would have to actually purchase the item
Yes.
through Amazon to be able to make a review on the product.
That's the type of because they can't really regulate it, so that is a step that should be taken towards most of these review sites, right? They should be verified,
Yes,
or else there's a lot of
should be
manipulation, as you can
verified.
see in the forex industry. All these companies are getting these, well, a lot of these companies are getting a lot of these fake reviews, and then as Shahan mentioned, this company in particular is not only doing that, but they're also reporting legitimate reviews that are 1 stars, just to boost their image. And
Because they are incentivized to
yeah,
do so.
because a lot of these companies as well, they're selling ridiculously expensive whatever products and services. You know, it can range from 1,000 to £6,000, and that's a lot of money for some people. So you really need to watch out for that kind of stuff, especially if you haven't traded before.
Yeah, spending £1,000 on a service when when you seemingly do your research, but even then, you can get caught off guard if you do it without actually thinking about how you're doing your research. Like if you just know the company name and you Google it and you check the first thing that comes up, that is not the best way to do your research, as they could do SEO. They could have SEO around their company name that pushes favorable forum links or reviews to the top,
Yeah,
and it gives this perception of the business being good when really they paid those services to make it the first thing you see when you Google them.
Yeah, if you don't know what SEO is, it's basically called search engine optimization, and what will happen is these companies hire marketing companies or whoever to push their website to the top of Google, their review sites to the top of Google, and these can be like unlegitimate review sites. So they don't have to be like well known, but they'll get pushed there, and it will seem as though that's the type of brand image they have. They have like a 5 star out of 5 star, but in reality, the legitimate reviews are being pushed down because of these methods.
Yeah. And that's why you should be careful when looking at, let's say, Trustpilot for a company. So one clear way to find out if there's been a lot of censorship is, even if a company has a lot of 5 stars and 1 stars, don't just look at the score. Scroll through the actual reviews, focus on the 1 star ones and see what the people are saying. And then you should check if there's been censorship, how much censorship has happened. Because if a lot of the reviews are censored out, you should be careful, as there's some shady things going on, and the company should be more carefully looked into before deciding to purchase anything.
Yeah, that's really true. And on top of that, I think a good one would be to check the accounts. You know, a lot of these accounts, they'll have signed up with either Google or Facebook, so they'll have pictures, they'll have legitimate names, but there'll be some accounts out there that will have really generic names, and the reviews they actually give will be super generic, super like, it's kind of like fake. Do you know
Almost,
what I
mean? Yeah, almost
Yeah,
robotic.
that's it. Because they're automatically generated in a sense if they've used these companies to bot reviews.
Some of the 1 star reviews would also be like that, but there's multiple reasons why a person posting a 1 star review would like to do it more anonymously.
Yes.
Especially if it's against a shady company. Because I noticed this company, when it was replying to the 1 star reviews, it would ask for the person's personal information, like the reviewer's customer number, so that they could identify the person. And if the person provided that number, the company could do all sorts of shady things against them, because they could do it in a malice. They'd have reason to be doing it, motive to do it in malice.
Yeah.
And
They do scare tactics,
that's
right?
why you should.
So what will happen is...
That's why people post anonymously.
Yeah, that's true.
On the 1 star reviews. But then if you think about posting anonymously for the 5 star reviews, it does the same concept doesn't apply, because the company would have no motive to attack the 5 star reviewer or do anything shady against the 5 star reviewer. And that's the reviewing. So that's just Trustpilot. Now Trustpilot's not the only one. Almost every major review center has these issues online.
That's kind of like the growing issue within the company itself with online trading, and which is why a lot of these financial regulators in Europe, at least, have started to take steps, right?
Yeah. So the next point was to do with IB agreements. And so an IB agreement is when a person introduces you to a broker, and whoever introduced you to that broker would be given a commission based on how much you trade with that broker. So say you sign up to a signal service or a educational service, and when you ask them which broker to use, they will give you a broker, a specific one, because they have an IB agreement with them, and they would be given some sort of commission for introducing you. Either a flat rate after they introduce you and you trade a certain amount, or a continual rate. So every time you open certain lot sizes, you'd be giving them a commission. They'd take a small commission out of your lot size, the same way the broker does, but it'd be a smaller chunk. So they're incentivized to have you trade more. So that's what an IB agreement is in general. And now the problem is, with this concept of an IB agreement, and all these signal services and educational services popping up, they would essentially get you to sign up with a broker that's non-regulated, as these brokers allow 1 to 500 leverage. Now you might ask, why does only the non-regulated brokers provide 1 to 500 leverage? There was a new regulation that came in last year around October time, if I'm not
It's
mistaken.
quite recent, yeah.
Yeah, it was quite recent. So this is for Europe. These regulations have been in place in Japan and America and Australia a bit further back than
Yeah, like
last year.
CFDs in general got banned in America, and IBs got banned in Singapore. So they're really conflicting, things that are in the market which you need to look out for.
Yes.
And
So
yeah, do you wanna?
with IB agreements and this ESMA regulation, it added these restrictions where all these regulated brokers could only provide a capped amount of leverage, such as 1 to 30 on major pairs or 1 to 50, and they were required to provide negative balance protection. So what negative balance protection essentially is you're not capable of losing more than you deposited into a broker. Example, if you deposited $100 and you opened however much lot size and you lost and you managed to get into negative $10, you're not liable for that negative $10. It's the broker that's liable for it,
They
which is good for the newer traders, but it does add way more restrictions onto the more professional side of it. So before, having more leverage isn't actually a bad thing, but it is bad for newer traders that do not know how to utilize this leverage effectively.
It's because they've been taught the wrong thing, right? So when
Yeah, they've been taught to use it completely wrong.
yeah, so that's the main problem with the IBs, because when educators and whatever signal services use this IB, they're incentivized for the client, the person that they've introduced, to trade with as much money as they can and as frequently as possible, because that's how they make money through the IB agreement. And that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
You really need to watch out for that when it comes to IB agreements and anyone in general that is introducing you to a broker. So they may not say they have an IB agreement, but if they're introducing you to some sort of broker or some sort of platform that lets you trade, that's a red flag right there, because that's it. That's what they have, an IB agreement.
An example of it is, say, John, a hypothetical person, invited another hypothetical person, Rob, into his signal service. Rob would be paying for 50, let's say 50 quid, £50 GBP per month to be a part of this signal service. Rob also asks John for some advice on which broker to use. John tells him, oh, you could use this broker, sign it up under my name, I'll say I introduced you, and John would be given a commission based on however much Rob trades. So say Rob opened a 1 lot size trade, he would take a commission of, let's say, $10 on that trade. The broker would get $6-7, whereas John would get $3 off of that 1 lot size. Now, if he opens a 10 lot size, John would get $30 now instead of just 3. So John wants Rob to use higher lot sizes.
Yep.
Even if that might not be beneficial towards Rob.
That's it. They want you to trade with more money, which is the big issue.
Yes, they want you to trade.
And it's a big problem in the industry because it hasn't been regulated in Europe, at least. It probably will be as more people start to complain about it and more people start to lose money within the industry. But there hasn't been that massive influx of reports yet for a financial authority to have that reactionary application.
It really hurts all the other traders, the legitimate traders, when these new regulations come into place because of these shady traders trying to, or not even traders, they're just marketers really, trying to capitalize on all these sketchy techniques to get their commission.
Yeah. It,
And now, when these people would introduce you to whatever broker they're introducing you to, they're more incentivized now to introduce you to non-regulated brokers.
mm,
So you might ask, why would they introduce you to a non-regulated broker? Because non-regulated brokers provide 1 to 500 leverage, or 1 to 2,000 leverage in some extreme cases, whereas a regulated broker cannot provide that amount of
because they've
leverage.
been capped at that 1 to 30 rule, right? At least in the EU.
Yes. So what's the difference between a non-regulated and a regulated broker? Like, why is a non-regulated broker so bad to go with? If they give you more leverage, ain't they a better option?
Nope.
Is what some people
Mhm.
might think. Now, if a non-regulated broker were to you were to ask to withdraw money from a non-regulated broker, the non-regulated broker could just run away with your money or say, oh, there's a bug in our system, we lost your
Mhm.
money. And there's no one you can go to get that money back because they're not regulated under any financial board.
Yes. And that's where everyone new to the markets, or even if you're not, you have to do your due diligence to research these brokers yourself. And number one, make sure they're regulated. If they're not regulated within your
Yes,
company, within your country,
your country.
such as in the UK, there'll be FCA. If they're not regulated under the FCA, you really need to think, should I be going with these people? Because if anything goes wrong, I can't get my money back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you're completely out of pocket that
Mhm.
money. And it's even if you do become profitable, they could take your money. Nothing you can do about it.
Mm.
Or they could do shady tactics where they have like they make your dealing book, the order flow
Mm.
known to whoever owns that broker, and they have no regulations in place to prevent. Uh, Wait, let me word it more better. So, say you're with a regulated
Mhm.
broker, you know their operation, how it works. They would have made it clear how whether they're dealing desk, non-dealing desk, whatever, and it's been confirmed by a regulatory board such as the FCA. Whereas a non-regulated broker, none of this has been confirmed by anyone. It's you're just taking out what they're
Mm.
telling you, and they could essentially be lying to you as they are incentivized to do so because they could just say, "Oh, we're a great broker. We'll give you really small spreads, and we're true ECN wherever,"
Mhm.
even if they are not. And there's no one that can confirm whether they are or not because they're not regulated.
That's true. That's like the really big issue with unregulated. I don't even know why they're allowed to operate as a business, to be honest, without being regulated. But yeah, so what do you think, to conclude that point, to conclude IBs and brokers in general, what are the main points?
If so, the main points are to take away are if you are introduced to a broker, whether it be through a signal service, through someone reaching out to you, through the education provider that told you to go to that broker, you should check whether they have an IB agreement with them, as they have to tell you whether they have an IB agreement with them if you ask.
Mm.
Or if you're given uh, a non-regulated broker as a recommendation, check why are they giving you this broker. Is it because it's actually a good broker, or are they incentivized to do so through the IB agreement?
Mm.
After checking whether they are incentivized or not to do so, then you should do your own research on their broker. Is it regulated? Who is it regulated by? Because it might not be regulated where you are
Mm.
based. So, for example, if a company is regulated in America but not in the UK, it still might not be good enough for you because you're still not essentially protected, even if the company seems more legitimate, as it does have a regulatory board backing
Mhm.
it. you should take a lot of factors into consideration. There's quite a lot that goes into researching which broker you want to choose,
Yeah,
and anyone that gives you a recommendation on a broker, if they are incentivized to do so, you should know what they are and be extra
mhm.
careful, especially when a lot of leverage is involved.
Yeah. On top of that as well, if you are with some sort of educational company or Signals or whoever, if they have an IB agreement, check if they're getting that percent commission rebates. If they don't, if they have a 0% commission rebate, that means they genuinely think that broker is legit and they should be using it in that country because they think, right, this broker's legit. You can easily withdraw money. It's regulated. The platform is good to use, and their customer services are on point. And it can actually save you time if it's a good broker, right? If it ticks off
Yes.
all the requirements, such as being regulated, having good services, being a good platform to trade on, have high liquidity. If it does, then
And
it's fine. But if not, you really need to watch out
yep,
for it because it's a big issue.
it is a big issue. The IP agreements and all of that.
Yeah.
And then there's the statistics. When someone is recommending their education service or whatever they are recommending, whatever product they are selling you, whether it's signal service or whatever, when you ask for reviews on the, or when you ask to do your own research, say, oh, I want to know whatever statistics you have,
Mm.
how many people make money, how much are satisfied with your business or your signal service, they'll give you their own biased sources. So, say you went to this signal provider and you asked them, oh, how good is your company?
Mm-hmm.
Is it good statistically? How much people make money? Whatever. They could lie to you, they could give you biased sources, and if you take that as legitimate research, then you're bound to be at their mercy because they could have given you, you know how, you know what I mean by the biased sources.
Yeah,
Like,
they'll just give you confirmation on whatever they want to say. So they'll be like some
yeah,
sort of MLM company, and most people know that MLMs are really short-lived. The companies normally die out and then they rebrand themselves. And what they'll do is
yes,
they'll just send you these basically fake websites or fake review websites, and they'll just use that as the only evidence, where in fact everything else is telling you otherwise. And you
yes.
just have to watch
So,
out for it.
for example, there's an MLM company that I was researching, and I asked the person to send me that I wanted to do my own research on it. So he goes, "Oh, check this link out." I was like, "Okay, I'll check it out." I noticed that the M&M company was reviewed with a triple A star, perfect company. So I looked into it further, like, whoa, is this company really this good?
Mm.
Looked into the worst company on there, and even the worst company on that review site was at A, had an A ranking. So there was nothing below A.
Mm.
That goes to show how biased that source was, as every MLM company was given an A rank and above because they must have had some incentive to do so. They must be paid by the MLMs. It might even be run by some MLM
Mm-hmm.
members. And once you do ask for research or ask for some statistics, you shouldn't ask for it from a person that's incentivized to sell you that product. So, for example, the signal service, you shouldn't be asking them for their statistics as they could lie to you or manipulate
Mm-hmm.
it. You should do your own research on the company
Yeah.
because there is another one where testimonials come up. Testimonials are cherry picked to give you the best ones they could find or fake ones.
Yep.
They would never show you a 1 star testimonial, even if there are majority of their testimonials might be 1 stars. They would never show you it. That's why it's very biased.
Yeah, it's why most people don't like testimonials in general. But if it's from a professional source, and they have links towards this guy's real, he's actually using the services, then it's actually a decent testimonial. But if they don't have any of these like contact links towards the testimonial, very likely it's a fake link. It's a fake review.
Yeah. So the three main points that were brought up in this discussion was watch out for review manipulation through either review censorship or other methods. Watch out for biased sources that give overly good reviews towards companies, to all companies on purpose, as they may have some incentive to do so. Look for more legitimate places for reviews, and look into each review instead of just looking at the overall score of a company. See where the problems are arising, see where the good reviews, what they are saying, whether they're PR or fake or real. Sometimes you may even want to look into the actual reviewers, see if they're real people or if it's a bunch of fake accounts. And then watch out for IB agreements. Whenever an IB agreement is involved, you should be very careful, especially when it's involved with it on top of it being a non-regulated broker with commission rebates involved. It could be a very slippery slope where a person could recommend you to open ridiculous lot sizes, you'll lose all your money, and then they would cycle through to the next person and they wouldn't even care. They would have made their commission off of you as a person and moved on to the next person, and they would keep cycling through it until they've made enough money or until all the bad reviews and such catch up, and they would just rebrand under another name and start again, repeat the process over and over again.
Yeah. Oh, I think that concludes it pretty well. What do you think?
Yeah. And also watch out for biased sources. So anything that's very biased, avoid it. Look for more legitimate places for research, like either a financial regulatory board or you could even message a customer. So if you notice someone that's actually bought the service, that's not incentivized to sell it to you, which is a problem with MLMs, because anyone that buys an MLM is incentivized to sell you the MLM, so you can't really take their word for it. But if it's not an MLM and they have no incentive to lie to you, then sometimes messaging each customer might be a legitimate way to look into a company.
For sure.
And look for the 1-star reviews, see what they have to say.
Yeah.
If it's legitimate concerns, it'd be written out thoroughly in the 1-star reviews.
I think that pretty much covers the main points we wanted to discuss about what to look out for before you start your trading journey. And
yeah, there's hundreds of things you should look out for, but this is just the tip of the iceberg.
There's all these things out there that you really need to look out for, and we will try to cover them in the next few YouTube videos. We'll probably discuss, the type of scams and things to look out for in a more graphic view instead of a podcast. So be sure to watch out for that. And thanks for listening, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.